You don't think you should have to work with squirrels in the office. You don't think I should duct tape Hank to the walls. No more free water, no more vacation days. I'm gonna dump rats into the walls. You haven't seen anything yet. Unionize. I dare you.
This is a community-supported legal education channel. Find out how you can support our mission at the links in the description below.
Barstool Sports is a sports and pop culture blog founded by Dave Portnoy in Milton, Massachusetts. The site, which has been owned since 2016 by the Chernin Group, a media holding company, is headquartered in New York City. So why is Barstool Sports in the news? Well, let's just continue to review a little bit here before we get there. They broadcast a televised version of the Barstool Rundown live from Houston on Comedy Central in 2017, so I guess that's been pretty important for them. On July 19th, 2016, Erica Nardini, former chief marketing officer of AOL, was announced as the CEO of Barstool Sports. NBA player Frank Kaminsky launched a Barstool podcast, Pros and Joes, hosted by himself and 3 of his high school friends. So it is it's a media company that's doing a decent job in the sports world of, I guess, building a brand. So then someone tries to undo all of that, namely Dave Portnoy, the proprietor or I guess now minority owner of Barstool Sports, the creator and minority owner of Barstool Sports. Dave Portnoy has said on Twitter that he heard that Ringer employees wanted to unionize, so he wrote an article back in 2014, and he wants them to read it and use it as a little refresher about how he feels about unions. That article is here. Gawker writers vote to unionize. This person here, El Presidente, is Dave Portnoy, and he writes, "Bah ha ha ha. I hope and pray that Barstool employees try to unionize. I can't tell you how much I want them to unionize, just so I can smash their little union to smithereens. Nothing would please me more than to break it into a million little pieces. Oh, you think you deserve health insurance. You don't think you should have to work with squirrels in the office. You don't think I should duct tape Hank to the walls. Well, now yous can't leave. No more free water, no more vacation days. I'm gonna dump rats into the walls. You haven't seen anything yet. Unionize Nate, unionize Trent. I dare you. Trent, you'll be back to working security at Walmart in a blink of an eye. KFC will be doing my accounting. No more fancy pants weddings. Hank will be an exhibit at the Museum of Science. Unionize. I dare you." So in response, let's see if I can find the response here. I believe this is a lawyer. Let's just see here. This is staff writer at Live Science. I'm not sure. He doesn't say he's a lawyer, but he might be a lawyer. But he does offer to have a private chat with Barstool employees about the unionization process. And this is Rafi Letzter. There we go. Rafi Letzter. I thought that was an L. If you work at Barstool and want to have a private chat about the unionization process and how little power your boss has to stop you and how you can leverage that power to make your life better, my DMs are open. And that has gotten 2,000 retweets. It's been a fairly popular thing. So then Dave Portnoy himself responds, "If you work for Barstool Sports and DM this man, Rafi Letzter, I will fire you on the spot." Now, I don't know if in your mind that sounds good or bad. Should a boss, should an employer have the right to fire an employee for trying to form a union? On one hand, it sounds normal to want to protect your business from the employees who are going to now be able to demand or rather leverage their unionization to make stronger demands, to strengthen their demands. That sounds like an attack of some kind, right? So yeah, you could sort of see that a business would want to stop its employees from unionizing. However, this has happened before, and we have an entire law around this process called the National Labor Relations Act of 1935. Now, why 1935? What was happening before 1935 that might have caused an act to be passed protecting workers' rights?
Well, Leonard, the entire economy collapsed.
The worst economy collapse in the history of the United States, right? And it might have been the world. I don't know if the world was affected. I think it was at least the United States economy collapsed basically to zero, right? Like, I don't mean like the stock market went from 17,000 to 10,000, which is a tremendous collapse. I'm talking about it went from like, what was it, like 800 or something to zero. It was a tremendous collapse. Everything had to be basically restarted from scratch as far as figuring out everything with society, how people work, how people are paid, what workers' rights are, how you solve mass starvation problems or mass hunger problems or mass unemployment problems. So this was the Great Depression, and the response to, not the Great Depression, but one of the responses to some of the problems created by the Great Depression, which also happened to be some of the problems that caused the Great Depression, such as incredibly long hours and low worker pay and no workers' rights and stuff. In other words, we're all cogs in a machine. If you could exploit workers to the point that the workers died, you would have no more workers. You'd have to keep refreshing with work. Well, these are human rights violations. You know, we can't allow people to work somebody to death and everything. But you can see through the complaints from Amazon these days, there are complaints coming out of other countries such as China and Russia and North Korea, that there's still a lot of effort being made to minimize worker rights, to maximize the number of workers working for the least amount of pay, if any pay at all, which that we call that slavery. And that still happens around the world. And then maybe not slavery, but you still have to work in the US, right? We don't have like some kind of guaranteed minimum income. That would be really offensive to most political parties, to have some kind of guaranteed minimum income, or maybe we could call it security for society. That doesn't sound right. Maybe social security. We would security for society. We call it social security. That wouldn't fly very well with the population, so we can't do that. So instead, they have a National Labor Relations Act here. It is a foundational statute of labor law, which guarantees the right of private sector employees to organize into trade unions. My God, there's an actual law from 84 years ago that protects the right to collective action as a union. Collective action such as strikes or collective bargaining. The National Labor Relations Act seeks to correct the inequality of bargaining power between employers and employees by promoting collective bargaining between trade unions and employers. The law establishes the National Labor Relations Board to prosecute various violations of labor law and to oversee the process by which employees decide whether to be represented by a labor organization. It also establishes various rules concerning collective bargaining and defines a series of banned unfair labor practices, including interference with the formation or organization of labor unions by employers. The act does not apply to certain workers, including supervisors, agricultural employees, domestic workers, government employees, and independent contractors, and so none of that applies here. When they say supervisors, they mean that the supervisor is not protected by the National Labor Relations Act, not the opposite, not that the supervisor can do whatever he wants. It was strongly opposed by the conservatives and members of the Republican Party in 1935, but it was upheld in the Supreme Court case of NLRB versus Jones and Laughlin Steel Corp. The 1947 Taft-Hartley Act amended the NLRA, establishing a series of unfair labor practices for unions and granting states the power to pass right-to-work laws. Right-to-work laws, let's see here, they just allow the states state to regulate whether the union can require dues or not. So if you get a job in a union shop, in other words, if you get hired by a company whose employees are represented by a union, that union's separate from the company. Like, those are the employees of the company, but that union is not the company. So if the company hires somebody and they choose not to join a union, what happens? They get fired, or are they forced to join a union? In some jobs and in some cases, you are forced to join the union. You must pay union dues regardless. In other cases, in other states, you are not forced to pay union dues if you don't want to. You're not required to join the union. Without going through the entire labor relations law, let's just sort of look at what it is here. There is a section here of the Act. The central idea is to encourage the practice and procedure of collective bargaining by protecting the exercises of workers of full freedom of association, self-organization, and designation of representatives of their own choosing for the purpose of negotiating the terms and conditions of their employment or other mutual aid or protection. The National Labor Relations Board is charged with enforcement. Section 7 of the Act sets out the general principle that employees have the right to join a trade union and engage in collective bargaining. Employees shall have the right to self-organization, to form, to join, or assist labor organizations or bargain collectively through representatives of their own choosing. There can only be one exclusive bargaining representative for a unit of employees. The rules support the promotion of the practice and procedure of collective bargaining. Employers are compelled to bargain with the representative of its employees, and employees are allowed to discuss wages. And I don't just mean unionized employees are allowed to discuss wages. Everyone is allowed to discuss wages. I fell victim to this at my first real job. I used to work for a major electronics corporation, and they convinced all of us employees that we were not allowed to discuss our salaries, and so no one ever did. And I remember a couple times I would say something like, hey, how much do you make? We're doing the same job or whatever, it'd be good to know. And someone would say to me, oh, no, I'm not going to say, because if somebody found out that I told you, in fact, if they found out you were even asking, you could get fired. No, that's protected speech. It's not just protected speech like First Amendment. That's protected speech, or protected by the National Labor Relations Act as well. It also makes unfair labor practices out of interfering with, restraining, or coercing employees in the exercise of rights guaranteed in Section 7 to collectively bargain or unionize, to dominate or interfere with the formation or administration of any labor organization, or by discrimination in regard to hire or tenure of employment or any term of condition, discourage membership in a labor organization, or discriminate against any employee who files charges or testifies, or refusing to bargain collectively with the representative of the employer's employees. So those really aren't that bad. Are we really asking that much for an employer to be required to bargain with their employees if the employees choose to unionize? And then the employer cannot interfere with the union, but rather can only bargain with the union. So that sounds perfectly fair to me. Hello, we have a Nico here who is ready for the show to be. It must be 2 hours. Is our 2 hours up already? Because Nico knows.
Oh my God! It's literally to the minute 2 hours. What?
I'm rubbing his ears. I love you so much. Can you get off from me now? Thank you. He is just the best. He is just the best. Let's see. So then the AFL-CIO, which is a large labor union, has paged the NLRB, explaining everything we just went over, basically, that the bosses are prohibited from dominating or interfering with the formation or administration of any labor organization. The National Labor Relations Board pledges to investigate Barstool Sports founders' tweets. Someone filed charges, basically, or claims claiming that he's violating union rights. And so the NLRB will have to investigate. The NLRB has acknowledged the filing and sent a letter to Barstool Sports in response. The NLRB enforces the National Labor Relations Act, as we discussed. So Barstool Sports has gotten a letter from the National Labor Relations Board explaining that they're in violation of the National Labor Relations Act and should probably either back off or face penalties. So no fine yet, but we'll see if that happens. It may have already reached the point where they could get a fine, but I'm not a labor law attorney, so maybe somebody in the comments could tell us better. He very well could be joking, and even if he sincerely meant it as a joke, because let's go back and let's be fair here. I'm not supporting anti-union behavior, but let's be fair here. I hope and pray that Barstool employees unionize. You deserve health insurance. Sounds reasonable. You think you should have to work with squirrels in the office? Okay, he's getting ridiculous. Duct tape Hank to the wall. Okay, yeah. No more vacation days, no more free water, dump rats into the walls. You ain't seen nothing yet. It's obviously a joke. I get it. Like he's probably not as anti-union as he sounds. However, if you were a Barstool Sports employee, can you really tell the difference there? The National Labor Relations Act isn't written jokes are okay. Of course, jokes are okay, but what about the perception of that joke? Does it have to be perceived as a joke? Does it have to be clear that it's a joke? Does it have to be a disclaimer when we joke about about firing unionizing employees? Do we have to reassure them that it's really okay to unionize and that we're just joking? I think so. I think if you tell an employee as a joke, ha ha ha, I'm going to fire you if you try to unionize, you then also have to follow up with a formal letter or even just a disclaimer that says, I'm only joking, you have the right to unionize under Section 7 of the National Labor Relations Act. Here's a copy of it. If he did that, great. If there was a letter that went out to all employees that says, Dave is telling a joke, you really do have the right to unionize and we're not going to fire you, much better. If I was their lawyer, I would simply tell them, don't make that joke. Don't make that joke at all. It's like if an employee walks in to your conference room and you say, you're fired. That employee might burst into tears and go collect their things and leave, and then might sue you for wrongful termination, and you go to the hearing and go, oh, it was just a joke. Well, how did they know it was a joke? So this is along those lines. If he had jokingly fired an employee and an employee did not know it was a joke, this is the same kind of thing. If you jokingly tell people you're not allowed to unionize, I just wouldn't do it. But if you're going to do it, you'd better make damn clear it's a joke. So if you want to let the joke sink in for a second and then, you had your laugh, then tell everybody it's a joke. Okay, I still disagree that that's the appropriate thing to do, but at least I can defend that. I can't defend it if you just blatantly say, I'm going to fire you if you contact somebody about talking about a union. No, don't even do that. So let us know what you think. Do you completely disagree? Should Barstool Sports be able to be completely anti-union and fire everybody who tries to unionize? What are the appropriate remedies? If your employees try to unionize, there has been some case law where you could close the company so that you don't have to face unionized employees. And you may even be able to close the company specifically, expressly, not to have to face the union employees. However, would you fire all the employees who unionized and then hire new employees? Not automatically, no. You would need some reason to. You would still need. There's. Let's put it this way: the National Labor Relations Act does govern how you would be able to fire employees if you wanted to avoid getting a union, and it's very difficult. I believe it's something along the lines of you would have to fire everybody or something, or I think it might even be the close the company thing. You might end up having to close the company. So Jabberwocky is saying common tactic for Walmart might be to close a store. So if they're facing unionization at a store, they might close the store. That's also tricky because if they don't do it right, they're in violation of this law. So what do you think of that? Should we go into more depth on the National Labor Relations Act? Because there's a lot more here. Do you enjoy that kind of thing? And what do you think of Barstool Sports' or Dave Portnoy's statement about firing employees? Was it just a joke and he should be let off the hook? Or was it crossing the line? Even if he meant it as a joke, it wasn't presented as a joke. And otherwise, do you think maybe he's actually serious and just couching his hatred of unions as a joke, because then he could at least try to get away with it that way? All right, everybody, that is our show. I am Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. I'm off to Glasgow, so thank you for your support as we move Kaylee to Glasgow. We're going to be doing a vlog of some kind, which we will figure out how to post to our YouTube channel. I'll probably end up doing some kind of playlist, and we'll give you the link to the playlist, and then we'll uncheck the notify subscribers thing when we add new videos to the playlist. Or maybe I'll just add unlisted videos to the playlist, and then that way only the playlist subscribers will get notified. How about that? How does that sound? Thank you to our supporters. Without your support, this channel would not be possible. At $500 in the months of July and August, Joshua Davis with TandaPay has supported our channel, and we'll be making a video about his TandaPay service so that hopefully we can help him launch that service into a larger effort. Thank you to the $50 plus supporters: John Steele, Gavin Barnard, Eevi, Kyle Mudrak, Michael Pearce, Negrey, blackleaf, Spirit Bear, Daniel Perez, Snorre Wisotzky, NotMike, Joe Tyson, and King Macro. Thank you very much for your support at the $50 level, and thank you to the $5 plus supporters who are also scrolling on the LED panel behind me, along with the other rewards as well. We appreciate all of your support, and let's put some dog video up on the as the crawl goes out here. I'll be doing that vlog with Kaylee starting probably tomorrow or Monday, and we'll see how that goes. So I'll post a link in the description and probably in the outro here. Have a good one. I'm Leonard French, your favorite copyright attorney. With me in the virtual studio today has been Brandon and Kaylee and Tactical. Thank you very much to everyone. Have a great day, a great week, and I'll see you in the videos that drop. Love you all. Bye.
Baby, I forgot to breathe. This town's got a hold on me. My mind is a casualty. Find me. Static in my